Imagine waking up every morning with a dream so big, it feels impossible. No safety net, no investors, no backup plan, just an idea, and the determination to make it real. That's exactly where she started. No fancy degrees, no wealthy connections, no one handing her opportunities on a silver platter. Just grit, long nights, and an unshakable belief that she could turn nothing into something at one point. Even buying a cup of coffee felt like a luxury. Bills piled up, the rent was overdue, and every rejection email chipped away at her confidence. People told her to be realistic, to get a stable job, to stop chasing something that seemed so far out of reach. But deep down, she knew that if she didn't take this shot, she'd regret it for the rest of her life. The early days were brutal. She worked out of a tiny apartment, using an old laptop that overheated every few hours. There were nights she barely slept, juggling multiple side gigs just to keep the lights on. Some days, she doubted herself. Maybe she wasn't cut out for this. Maybe the people who told her to quit were right. But every time she reached that breaking point, something pushed her forward: a small win, a kind word from a stranger, a reminder of why she started in the first place. Then came the first real breakthrough. It wasn't anything huge, just a single customer who believed in what she was building. One sale turned into two. Two turned into 10. And before she knew it, she was shipping out more orders than she could handle alone. But success didn't come easy. With growth came bigger challenges: manufacturing delays, cash flow issues, competitors trying to crush her before she even got started. The pressure was relentless, and just when it seemed like things were finally falling into place, disaster struck. Everything she had built was suddenly at risk. One decision would determine whether she lost it all or took her business to the next level. That moment changed everything. And what happened next? Well, that's where the real story begins. That was the moment everything hung in the balance. She had fought too hard to get here, but now, it felt like the whole world was closing in. The orders were piling up faster than she could handle, but the suppliers were suddenly backing out. Payments were delayed. Every day felt like a ticking clock, counting down to the moment she'd lose everything she had built from scratch. She sat at her small desk, staring at the numbers on the screen. They didn't lie. If she couldn't find a way to fix this, she wouldn't make it past the next month. She took a deep breath, rubbing her temples. There had to be a way. Giving up wasn't an option, not now, not after everything she had sacrificed. But it wasn't just the business that was on the line. It was years of struggle, every late night spent working when the rest of the world was asleep. Every moment she had doubted herself, but pushed forward anyway. If she lost this, what would she have left? She picked up the phone, her fingers trembling slightly. There was one last supplier she hadn't called yet. It was a long shot, she knew that. But she also knew that long shots were the only reason she had made it this far. She dialed the number, listening to the ringing. Her heart pounding, a voice answered. She took a deep breath and started talking. She explained her situation, her vision, why this mattered so much. The voice on the other end listened in silence. Then, finally, after what felt like forever, they responded, "I'll see what I can do." They said it wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. She clung to that tiny sliver of hope. Now, all she could do was wait. The days that followed were some of the hardest she had ever faced. Every time her phone buzzed, she held her breath, hoping it was good news. She barely slept. Her mind was constantly running through backup plans, solutions, anything that could keep the business alive. And then finally, the call came. The supplier had agreed. She had a chance. But there was a catch. The deal came with new challenges. The cost was higher than she had expected. She would have to push herself even harder, take risks she wasn't sure she could afford. But deep down, she knew she had no choice. She had to bet on herself. With no time to waste, she threw herself back into work. She reached out to every contact she had, pulled favors she never thought she'd have to use. Slowly, piece by piece, things started falling into place. The orders went out. The customers kept coming, but success wasn't just about survival. Now that she had made it this far, she had to think bigger. She had to scale, expand, take her brand to the next level, and just as she was starting to believe it was all possible, something happened that changed everything again. This time, it wasn't just a business problem. It was personal, and it threatened to destroy everything she had built, maybe even more. She had fought through setbacks before, but this was different. This wasn't just about finding another supplier or handling a cash flow issue. This time, it felt personal, like someone was trying to rip everything away from her, just as she was beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. It started with an email. A short message, no name attached, just a warning. Watch your back. Not everyone wants to see you win. At first, she brushed it off. She had dealt with doubters before, people who didn't believe she could do this, who told her she was chasing an impossible dream. But as the days passed, little things started happening. Orders that were supposed to be shipped mysteriously went missing. A supplier she had relied on for months suddenly backed out without explanation. Then, the worst blow, her website crashed during one of her biggest sales events, costing her thousands in lost revenue. She sat in front of her laptop, staring at the blank screen, her hands clenched into fists. Was this just a string of bad luck? Or was someone really trying to sabotage her? She tried to stay calm, to focus on solutions instead of fear. She reached out to her web developer, asking if the crash was just a technical issue. The answer came back quickly, and it sent chills down her spine. Someone had deliberately targeted her site. It wasn't an accident. It was an attack. Her mind raced. Who would do this? A competitor trying to shut her down? Someone from her past who didn't want to see her succeed? The more she thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. She had worked so hard to build this business, but the higher she climbed, the more enemies she seemed to make. Still, she refused to back down. She had come too far. If someone was trying to stop her, they had picked the wrong person to mess with. She called a cybersecurity expert, determined to find out who was behind it. The answer wasn't immediate, but it pointed to something much bigger than she had expected. This wasn't just about her business. There was a deeper game being played, and she was caught in the middle of it at the same time. She was dealing with another battle, one that had nothing to do with technology. A key investor she had been negotiating with was suddenly pulling away, hesitating on a deal they had been close to finalizing. She needed this funding to take her company to the next level, but now everything was uncertain. She met with them in person, sitting across the table from people who had the power to change her future with a single decision. She could see it in their eyes. They were nervous. Not about her business, but about something else. We're hearing things, one of them admitted. Rumors. People saying you might not be as stable as we thought. Her chest tightened. The sabotage, the missing orders, the website attack. Was this all connected? Was someone trying to make her look unreliable, to scare away her investors? She had no proof. Not yet. But she knew one thing for sure: whoever was behind this wasn't going to stop until she was out of the game. And that wasn't going to happen. As she walked out of the meeting, her mind was already working on her next move. If someone wanted to bring her down, they had underestimated her. She wasn't just going to defend herself. She was going to fight back. She barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind kept circling back to the same questions. Who was behind this? How far were they willing to go? And most importantly, how was she going to stop them before it was too late? The next morning, she woke up to another blow. A major client, one of her biggest, had suddenly cancelled their contract. No warning, no explanation, just a short, cold email saying they were going in another direction. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't just bad luck anymore. Someone was pulling strings behind the scenes, chipping away at everything she had built. Piece by piece, She took a deep breath, forcing herself to think clearly. If someone wanted her to panic, she wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Instead of spiraling, she started making calls. She reached out to her contacts, her network, anyone who might know what was happening. The answers didn't come easily, but the more she dug, the clearer the picture became. Someone had been spreading false stories about her business. Quiet whispers to investors, suppliers, and customers, painting her as unreliable, in over her head, unable to handle the pressure. It was a slow, calculated attack, designed to ruin her reputation before she even had a chance to fight back. Her jaw clenched. She had fought too hard to let someone else decide her fate. She needed proof. If she could expose whoever was doing this, she could turn everything around. But time was running out then. The final blow hit. Her bank account was frozen, she found out, when she tried to make a payment, only to see the transaction declined. Confused, she logged into her account, only to be met with a message saying there was a hold due to suspicious activity. Her heart pounded. She called the bank, demanding an explanation. "There's been a complaint filed against your business," the representative said. "We need to investigate before we can release any funds." A complaint? From who? She gripped her phone tighter, barely able to breathe. This wasn't just about rumors anymore. Someone had gone straight for her lifeline, cutting off her ability to operate. She knew what this meant. If she didn't fix this fast, she wouldn't just lose money, she'd lose everything. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. From rage. Whoever was doing this thought they had won. But they had no idea who they were up against. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of the fight. She couldn't afford to waste time. Every second that passed was another step closer to losing everything. She needed answers, and she needed them fast. Her first instinct was to go straight to the bank, but she knew that wouldn't solve the real problem. The complaint, the sabotage, the false rumors, someone had orchestrated all of it. If she didn't find out who, they would keep coming at her from every direction until she had nothing left. She pulled out her phone and dialed the cybersecurity expert she had hired when her website was attacked. "I need you to dig deeper," she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "Whoever did this isn't just messing with my business. They're trying to destroy me." The answer didn't come right away, but when it did, it hit harder than she expected. The attack wasn't random. It wasn't just a jealous competitor or some anonymous hacker. It was someone close to her. Her stomach dropped as she stared at the name on the screen. She read it again, hoping she had made a mistake. But there it was, clear as day. It was someone she had trusted. Someone who had been there from the start, watching as she built her business from nothing. Someone who had smiled to her face while working against her in the shadows. She felt a wave of disbelief, followed quickly by something colder, something sharper. Betrayal. Everything started clicking into place. The missing orders. The lost investors. The client who had walked away without warning. They hadn't just happened. They had been planned. Carefully, patiently. She gripped her phone tighter, her mind racing. If this person thought she wouldn't fight back, they had underestimated her. But just as she was about to confront them, something else happened, something that changed everything again. A package arrived at her door. No return address. Just her name, written in unfamiliar handwriting. She hesitated before opening it. And when she did, she felt the breath leave her lungs. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No threats. No demands. Just a message that made her blood run cold. "You're running out of time." That's when she realized this wasn't over. It was only getting started. Her hands trembled as she stared at the note. "You're running out of time." The words echoed in her mind, tightening the knot in her chest. She had been fighting in the dark, trying to patch up every attack as it came. But now she knew this wasn't just about taking down her business. It was personal. She had to act fast. She grabbed her phone and made one last call to the cybersecurity expert. "I need everything you have. Now." The response came quicker than she expected. The evidence was clear: financial records, email traces, digital footprints, leading back to the one person she never thought would betray her. It was someone she had once called a friend, someone she had trusted with confidential information, who had seen her struggles up close. They had been there when she was at her lowest, pretending to support her while secretly working to tear her down. And now they were close to finishing what they had started. She didn't hesitate. She set up a meeting, choosing a public place where she knew she wouldn't be alone. She needed answers when she arrived. They were already there, waiting, wearing the same easy smile she had seen 100 times before. But now it felt different. Forced. Fake. Why? The word came out sharper than she intended, but she didn't care. She needed to hear it from them. They sighed, shaking their head like they were disappointed in her. "You had everything," they said. "And you didn't even see it." She felt her pulse quicken. "Everything? I built this from nothing. I struggled for years." "And you," she exhaled sharply, forcing herself to stay calm. "You tried to take it away." They leaned back, crossing their arms. "You were getting too big, too powerful. I was there from the start, and yet I was still in your shadow." Their voice hardened. "People only saw you. They never saw me." She felt a deep, hollow ache in her chest. It wasn't just business to them. It was jealousy, resentment. And they had been willing to burn everything down just to feel like they had won, but they hadn't won. Because she had come prepared. She reached into her bag, pulling out the printed records, the proof of everything they had done. The false reports, the payments made to the hacker, the anonymous complaints filed to the bank. She laid it all on the table, watching as the confidence in their eyes flickered. "It's over," she said, her voice steady. "You tried to destroy me, but you failed." For the first time, they looked uncertain. "You wouldn't," they said, but she could hear the doubt creeping in. She leaned forward. "I already did." At that moment, their phone buzzed. They checked it, and she saw the color drain from their face. The investors knew. The suppliers knew. Everyone knew. She had exposed them before they could do any more damage. They stood up abruptly, their chairs scraping against the floor. "This isn't over." Their voice was low, filled with something almost like desperation. She met their gaze, unshaken. "For you, it is." As they walked away, she felt the weight on her chest lift. The war wasn't easy, but she had won. Or so she thought. Because just as she was about to leave, her phone buzzed. A new message. No name, no number. Just 5 words. "You stopped the wrong person." And just like that, she realized this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of something even bigger. Her breath caught as she stared at the message on her screen. "You stopped the wrong person." The words felt like a punch to the gut. Had she missed something? Had she been so focused on one betrayal that she overlooked an even bigger threat? She tried to steady herself, but her mind was already racing through everything that had happened. The sabotage, the lost deals, the bank freezing her account. Had it really all come from one person? Or was there someone else pulling the strings? She didn't have time to second guess. If there was another threat lurking in the shadows, she needed to find out now. She checked the message again. No name. No number. Just a warning. Whoever sent it wanted her to know she wasn't done fighting. But why? Were they helping her or taunting her? There was only one way to find out. She called the cybersecurity expert again, her voice tight with urgency. "I need you to double-check everything. If I miss something, if there's someone else I need to know." The wait was agonizing. Every second felt like an eternity. But then, the call came back. "You need to see this," the expert said. Her stomach dropped. They met in a quiet cafe, away from prying eyes. A laptop sat open on the table, A string of files pulled up on the screen. "I went deeper," the expert said, voice low. "You were right. There's more to this." She leaned in, her pulse pounding. Who? The expert hesitated before clicking on one last file. An email thread popped up, and when she saw the name attached to it, the air left her lungs. It wasn't just her former friend. It was someone inside her own company. Someone who had been working with them all along. Her mind reeled as the realization hit her. While she had been fighting to expose one traitor, another had been right under her nose, watching, waiting, making sure the damage ran even deeper. She clenched her fists. "How do we stop them?" The expert met her gaze. "We already did." Confusion flickered across her face until she saw the final email timestamp. It was recent, just minutes ago. The second traitor had panicked. The moment the first one was exposed, they had made a critical mistake. They had tried to cover their tracks, but instead, they had left just enough evidence to connect them to everything. The truth was already out. She exhaled, the weight of everything pressing down on her. It wasn't just about revenge or proving a point. It was about protecting what she had built, making sure no one could take it away from her again. The next few weeks were a blur. The legal team handled what needed to be handled. The investors who had pulled away started coming back, realizing they had been misled. The suppliers returned, the deals were reinstated, and slowly, the damage was repaired. She had won, but she wasn't the same person anymore. She had learned something through all of this, something that would stay with her forever. Success wasn't just about hard work or talent. It was about resilience. About standing up, even when the ground beneath you was shaking. As she sat in her office one evening, long after everyone else had gone home, she let herself take it all in. The quiet hum of the city outside, the faint glow of her computer screen, the feeling of knowing she had survived the storm. A message popped up on her phone this time. It was from an old client, one who had hesitated to work with her during the chaos. "I was wrong about you." The message read, "Let's talk." She smiled, not out of relief, but out of something deeper. She had fought for this. She had earned it, and now she was ready for whatever came next.